Power looks attractive from a distance. People see the influence, the control, the respect. They see the throne, but they never see what it costs to sit on it. Because authority is not a reward. It's a trade, and most people are not prepared to pay the price. 5 centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli made a quiet but brutal observation in The Prince. Leaders are often forced to act against loyalty, against mercy, even against their own nature. Not because they want to, but because power demands it. And the uncomfortable truth is this: the moment you step into authority, you begin to lose things you can never get back. We are taught to chase leadership, to want influence, to build status, to rise above others. But very few people are taught what leadership actually takes. Because real authority is not about gaining more. It's about sacrificing more. You lose simplicity. You lose freedom. And most importantly, you lose the ability to be understood. In previous episodes, we explored control, fear, and the structure of power. But none of those ideas exist without cost. Every decision you make as a leader creates consequences, not just for others, but for yourself. And those consequences accumulate. Slowly, silently, until one day you realize something most people never see. Power isolates, power hardens, and power changes you. In this episode, we break down the hidden cost of authority, the price every leader must pay, whether they admit it or not. Most people misunderstand power because they see only one side of it. They see what leaders gain. They don't see what leaders give up. Authority is often framed as a reward for competence, ambition, or strength. But in reality, it functions more like a contract. An exchange. You gain influence, but in return, you lose something just as valuable. The higher you rise, the more you are required to sacrifice. Time becomes scarce. Privacy disappears. Every action is observed, analyzed, and judged. And slowly, the margin for error shrinks. This is something Niccolò Machiavelli understood deeply in The Prince. He recognized that leadership forces individuals into situations where ideal choices don't exist. Only necessary ones. A leader cannot always afford to be generous, cannot always afford to be honest, cannot always afford to be liked, because every decision must serve something larger than personal comfort. And this is where the trade begins. To maintain authority, you must prioritize stability over emotion, results over relationships, long-term control over short-term approval. And each time you make that choice, you give something up. A relationship weakens. Trust becomes conditional. People begin to see you differently, not as an equal, but as a figure of authority. And that distance grows over time. This is the first cost of power. You stop being just a person. You become a position. And once that shift happens, everything changes. Conversations become calculated. Interactions become strategic. And even moments of honesty begin to carry risk. Because the higher you stand, the more dangerous vulnerability becomes. Most people want power because they believe it will give them freedom. But the reality is far more restrictive. Power limits your choices. It forces discipline. It demands sacrifice. And it constantly reminds you of one thing: everything you gain comes at a cost. There's a moment that almost every leader experiences. It doesn't happen immediately. It builds slowly, quietly over time. At first, nothing feels different. You're still surrounded by people, still having conversations, still part of a group. But something begins to shift. Subtly, people start choosing their words more carefully around you. They hesitate before disagreeing. They filter their opinions. Not because they don't have thoughts, but because you are no longer just one of them. You are the authority, and that changes everything. This is the beginning of isolation. Not physical isolation, psychological isolation. The kind that separates you from honest feedback, genuine connection, and unfiltered truth. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this dynamic long before modern leadership theory existed. In The Prince, he warned that leaders must be extremely careful about who they trust, because once you hold power, people no longer interact with you naturally. They interact with your position. Some will try to impress you. Some will try to influence you. Some will simply tell you what they think you want to hear. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to lose access to something critical. The truth. This is why leadership becomes lonely. Not because there are no people around you, but because fewer and fewer of those people are real with you. You begin to question intentions. Is this loyalty genuine or strategic? Is this agreement honest or calculated? And over time, that uncertainty creates distance. Because trust becomes harder. And when trust becomes harder, connection weakens. But the isolation doesn't stop there. There's another layer. As a leader, you carry information and responsibility that others do not. You see risks they don't see. You understand consequences they don't have to think about. And because of that, there are decisions you cannot fully explain. You can't always share your reasoning. You can't always reveal the full picture. Which means even when people disagree with you, you often have to stand alone. This is the silent burden of authority. You are surrounded by people, but you make the hardest decisions by yourself. And the higher you rise, the fewer people exist who can truly relate to your position. Because fewer people share your perspective. Fewer people understand your pressure. Fewer people see what you see. So while power may bring visibility, influence, and control, it also brings something far less talked about. Distance. Distance from others. Distance from simplicity. And sometimes, distance from who you used to be. Every leader eventually faces a moment where there is no good option. Only trade-offs, choices where someone benefits and someone loses. And no matter what decision you make, you will disappoint someone, you will hurt someone, you will create resistance. This is where leadership stops being theoretical and becomes personal, because power forces you into decisions that others don't have to make. Cutting someone off, enforcing a rule that affects people unfairly, choosing loyalty to the system over loyalty to individuals. These are not mistakes. They are requirements of authority. And this is something Niccolò Machiavelli made brutally clear in The Prince. A leader cannot preserve power without making decisions that cost relationships. Because leadership is not about keeping everyone satisfied. It's about maintaining stability. And stability often demands sacrifice. Not your sacrifice alone, but the sacrifice of others. This is where the emotional weight begins. Because every time you choose the system over the individual, you lose something. A connection weakens. A relationship fractures. Respect may remain, but closeness disappears. And over time, those moments accumulate. People begin to remember what you did, not why you did it. They remember the outcome, the decision, the consequence, not the pressure behind it, not the limited options you had. And this creates a dangerous gap, a gap between intention and perception. You may act for the greater good, but others may see it as betrayal. You may enforce discipline, but others may experience it as punishment. You may choose strategy, but others may feel abandoned. And once that perception sets in, something irreversible begins. Distance turns into resentment. Respect turns into resistance. And in some cases, loyalty turns into opposition. This is why leadership inevitably creates enemies. not always because of failure, but often because of necessity. Because the higher you rise, the more your decisions affect others. And the more people are affected, the more people have reasons to disagree with you, or even oppose you. This is the reality most people avoid. They want power without conflict, authority without consequence, control without resistance. But those things do not exist together. Power always creates friction, because power decides outcomes, and not everyone benefits from those outcomes. So the question is no longer, can you lead without losing people? The real question is, are you prepared to lose people to lead? Because once you step into authority, that loss becomes inevitable. There is a version of leadership people like to believe in. A version where every decision is fair, where every action is ethical, where doing the right thing always leads to the right outcome. But real power doesn't operate in that world, because leadership often forces you into situations where every option carries a cost. And sometimes, every option feels wrong. This is where the idea of moral compromise begins. Not because leaders lack values, but because reality does not always allow those values to be applied cleanly. There are moments when honesty creates instability, moments when mercy creates weakness, moments when loyalty conflicts with responsibility. And in those moments, a leader is forced to choose, not between right and wrong, but between necessary and comfortable. This is the uncomfortable truth that Niccolò Machiavelli explored in The Prince. He argued that leaders cannot always act according to traditional morality if they want to maintain power. Not because morality is useless, but because leadership operates in a world where consequences matter more than intentions. A decision can be morally pure and still lead to collapse. Another decision can feel morally questionable and still preserve stability. And when faced with that reality, leaders are forced into a difficult position. Do you protect your principles? Or do you protect the system you're responsible for? This is where internal conflict begins, because every compromise leaves a mark. At first it feels small, a decision you justify, a line you slightly adjust, a principle you bend just enough to make things work. But over time, those moments accumulate, and the line between who you were and who you've become starts to blur. This is the psychological cost of leadership. Not just what you lose externally, but what shifts internally. Because the more responsibility you carry, the more you are forced to think in terms of outcomes rather than ideals. And the more you think that way, the easier it becomes to justify decisions that once felt unacceptable. This is where many leaders begin to change. Not suddenly, but gradually, quietly, until one day they realize something unsettling. They are no longer making decisions based on what feels right. They are making decisions based on what works. And that shift is powerful, but it is also dangerous. Because without awareness, necessity can slowly replace conscience. And when that happens, leadership loses its balance. This is why the cost of power is not just external. It is internal. It reshapes how you think, how you decide, and ultimately, who you become. Power does not just give you authority. It gives you visibility. And visibility comes with pressure. The moment you step into a position of leadership, something changes. People begin to watch you, not casually, but constantly. Your decisions are analyzed. Your behavior is interpreted. Your mistakes are remembered. And over time, you realize something difficult. You are no longer judged as an individual. You are judged as a standard. Every action you take becomes a signal of strength or weakness, a signal of discipline or inconsistency, a signal of control or instability. And the higher you rise, the more people depend on those signals. Because people look to leaders not just for direction, But for certainty, they want to believe that someone is in control, that someone knows what they're doing, that someone can handle the pressure, and that someone is you. This creates a constant, invisible weight, because you are expected to perform even when uncertain, to decide even when the outcome is unclear, to remain composed even when the situation is unstable. This is the pressure most people never see. From the outside, leadership looks like control. From the inside, it often feels like responsibility without pause. There is no off switch, no moment where expectations disappear. Even in silence, you are still being evaluated. This is why consistency becomes critical. One strong decision builds confidence. One weak moment can create doubt. And doubt spreads quickly because people are always asking one question: can this leader handle what's coming next? This is where many leaders begin to feel trapped, because they can no longer act freely. Every decision must be calculated. Every reaction must be controlled. Every weakness must be managed. This is not about pretending. It's about maintaining stability. Because in positions of power, perception becomes reality. If people believe you are uncertain, the system becomes uncertain. If people believe you are unstable, the system begins to shake. This is why leaders often feel they cannot show everything. They cannot reveal every doubt, cannot express every fear, because doing so carries risk. This is the cost of expectation. You are not just responsible for outcomes. You are responsible for confidence. And maintaining that confidence requires constant discipline. If power demands sacrifice, if leadership creates isolation, if authority forces difficult decisions, then a final question remains. How do some leaders endure it? Why do some collapse under pressure, while others sustain power over long periods of time? The answer is not strength alone. It is balance, because the cost of authority is not something you eliminate. It is something you manage. This is the final layer of what Niccolò Machiavelli explored in The Prince. Power is not maintained by force alone. It is maintained through control, awareness, and restraint. Leaders who last understand something critical. If you sacrifice everything, there will be nothing left to sustain you. So they learn to create boundaries, not just for others, but for themselves. They accept that not every relationship can be preserved, but they protect the few that matter. They understand that not every decision will be clean, but they avoid unnecessary damage. They enforce authority, but they remain aware of its cost. This awareness is what separates enduring leaders from collapsing ones, because without it, the pressure accumulates unchecked. Isolation turns into disconnection. Control turns into rigidity. Discipline turns into emotional detachment. And eventually, the system begins to weaken from within. But leaders who remain conscious of the cost do something different. They pause, they reflect, they adjust. They understand that power is not just about holding control. It is about sustaining it without destroying themselves in the process. This is where maturity and leadership begins. Not in gaining authority, but in carrying it. Because anyone can rise, but very few can endure. And endurance requires something deeper than strategy. It requires self-awareness, the ability to recognize when the cost is becoming too high, and the discipline to recalibrate before it breaks you. Because power, when unmanaged, consumes, but power, when understood, can be sustained. Authority is often admired from a distance. It looks like control. It looks like influence. It looks like power. But up close, it looks very different. It looks like sacrifice. It looks like pressure. It looks like decisions that carry weight long after they're made. This is the price of authority. Not everyone sees it, and not everyone is willing to pay it. but every leader, whether they admit it or not, lives within it. This was the deeper reality behind the ideas of Niccolò Machiavelli in The Prince. Power is never free. It always demands something in return. And the higher you rise, the more it asks of you. In the next episode, we explore another uncomfortable truth: why loyalty is never permanent, and why leaders must learn to expect betrayal. Because in the world of power, trust is never as stable as it seems. If you're building power, influence, or leadership in your own life, subscribe to The Lonely Pen, because this series is not about comfort. It's about truth.